shortly.
Whereabouts are you?
Hey everyone, thanks so much for joining us. Super excited to be here today with Sam, who's the blockchain lead at OpenTensor Foundation and Bittensor. Um, we're super excited to have you here and dive into all the incredible stuff that's being built, and especially to focus in on DeFi use cases, financial use cases that are happening, being built on or around Bittensor. So yeah, we had a quick chat before the call, and I think we said that like everyone knows Bittensor, right? Like it's this kind of mega project which has had incredible growth this year. Um, and yet very few people really understand what Bittensor is and how it works. So maybe we could start off by jumping into the kind of higher level concepts behind Bittensor.
Okay, hi. So, hi everyone. Okay, Bittensor isn't your usual blockchain AI project because Bittensor has been through many iterations, and we have failed and we have failed fast. We figured out what didn't work. So initially, we used to try to train models. Then we thought, okay, let's have one subnet to train models. To train models, but we thought, okay, the problem is that you're trying to be overtly prescriptive and you're reducing the design space because who says we know how to train the best model? So can we create a collective framework that will incentivize collective intelligence? Yes, sir.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why we decided to abstract away all of that. So the core of doesn't Bittensor is built like a neural network, but it doesn't train neural networks. What we do is that we provide subnet owners with the primitives to create an incentive mechanism that would force miners that the dominant strategy becomes producing a better good. So what's a better good? A better fine-tuned model, a better model with reduced losses, or improved RAG. And quite frankly, it's expressive enough that any digital good that needs to be created, you can create a subnet and design it in a way that it channels participants to curate that digital good a lot better. So yeah, that's I know that's a lot, but that's Bittensor in a nutshell.
That's awesome. So the real like key thing for people to understand when they look like the architecture of Bittensor are the subnets. Right now, I think you have around 40, 50 subnets live. Is that correct? 50 subnets live. And how are these subnets incentivized? And what are they focused on? Like I saw one for predictions. I saw one for like I think medical data. I'd seen a lot of different subnets. So yeah, what are they focused on and how are they incentivized?
So that's a very good question. So right now, subnets can be focused on anything, but in the current iteration, there are two networks. There's a root network that decides how emissions are split. So every block, one tile is produced. Then root network votes on the percentage to be shared among each of the subnets. So in the evolution of the current iteration of Bittensor, the root network is the top 64 validators. They join and by stake and they allocate weights to different networks. So that's how it is. But what's really interesting is like the next iteration we're working on, because this has some problems. With like anything that you vote with money is always with money without any form of stake is always without any form of repercussion. There's always going to be some issues there. But it's worked for us so well. But the next iteration is something we call dynamic tau, where allocation of that coin base is based more on like Uniswap kind of interactions, where people stake into pools and the protocol mints tokens into that pool, depending on how many people have put their money towards it. So we believe that will lead to a more fairer and more efficient capital allocation. So, yeah, so that's it. So take for example, if I've got like advanced quantum ZK subnet and it's really good, I'll get a lot of weights because people perceive it with more value. And that's how it works. But if you build like, Frog Nation subnet, it's going to be a lot of money. You're going to lock a lot of tau in to that, and it will probably fail. So that's the way the protocol and the community discriminate against like what should be good and what isn't.
Okay. And so when subnets launch, or when someone launches a subnet, their goal is to use Tao's Bittensor's infrastructure to basically incentivize different people to come in and build models, right? So you're crowdsourcing intelligence into this.
Exactly. But it can be anything. It can literally be anything. But it's just that, like, more interest and the community interest, and in fact, the world's interest is AI. And its first use case was AI. But we're seeing people build like training platforms, storage networks, very soon. I reckon like a lot of the big compute providers are going to be in trouble because someone's just almost built a prototype for GPU rental subnet. So it's just about understanding the core primitives, and literally you're only bounded by your imagination.
That's awesome. And when so when a subnet owner starts, like, how do like the incentive mechanisms work? Do they like lay out the incentive mechanisms? Then do they have to like go into the community and persuade validators to come in and miners to come in?
So again, that's pretty much what it's like now. In that, there's a bit of lobbying, a bit of like, making a case to the community, a bit of brand awareness. That's how you get admissions, because you don't get admissions until people allocate weights to you. So you need to enlighten the community. You need to take validators to it. Your code has to be good, because in the subnet there are two actors: the miners who produce the goods, and the validators who run validation software. Depending on whatever that subnet is optimizing for, the software is meant to assess the miners' inputs and score them. So you need to get those people online. So it's a bit heavy to lift off. And one of the current problems is that, like, people might not be always trying to vote with their money, in that right now votes are risk-free. But in detail, it's more of a market discovery thing where you want to put your money where a subnet, and a good subnet has like good NPV, like future expectations. So there's a lot more like digging into stuff there.
Absolutely. Okay, that makes sense. And the validators and the miners, they're incentivized because they also get part of emissions, right? So
every block, the subnet owner. So there's two things. First of all, we decide how much each subnet gets on the root validator network. Then after that, for each subnet, the subnet owner gets a cut, which is 80%. That leaves you at 82%. Then that is shared between the miners and the validators. So if I have 10 validators, depending on, we have some scoring mechanisms for how well validators are performing. If they perform well, they get to share that 41%. Then the miners, depending on the incentive landscape that the subnet architect has created, then it would influence how much the miners get. So it's 18, 41, 41.
Cool.
100.
That's super interesting. So if I'm a machine learning expert, and I go through the subnets,
are you?
No, I'm not. I said if I am, not yet.
Gosh.
Not yet.
This was meant to be a recruitment call.
No, okay. So if I'm like, what's the best way for me to contribute, right? I would run through subnets. I would see maybe a subnet that I find interesting. Then would I sign up as a miner and start submitting models to them? or how would I go about that?
That's the TLDR, but it's not as simple as that because their bit tensor thrives on competition. So you would have to understand what the subnet is producing and perform better than most people. So take for example, like we have like different subnet with incentive codes. Like take for example, subnet 9. That's our pre-training subnet, yeah, and it's one of the big ones. Now that's a winner takes all subnet. So
wow.
Only one person gets to get all that incentive. That 41%, one miner gets it. So you need to evaluate things like, okay, my cost of training that model, would it be worth it? And it's a question we have, and mechanism designers are working around. So TLDR, yes, you figure out what subnet you have, you want to run, and understand the code, understand how you can optimize it. Because what the subnet owner will give you is a base miner. That base miner is not going to get you anywhere. That's where you get your alpha. Are you optimizing your GPU access? Are you writing a bit better data loader? Have you found a trick in the transformers library to help you train faster? Those are the kind of things so exactly, it's like, you put the carrot, there's no stick. You put a carrot in front of people. And if that carrot is juicy enough, our thesis is that they would do it, and it's working. It is working, and obviously we refine stuff because we also constantly get red teaming of the protocols because mechanism design is very tricky and evolution always happens. So as a subnet owner, I can be like, okay, this is how I want my subnet to work. Then a miner finds an exploit that means he doesn't have to do that work in order to get it. It happens a lot. So it's up to the subnet owner to be reactive and like, okay, thank you very much for finding this exploit because it's part of the game. Patch it up and build an incentive and fix that mechanism so the production curve keeps going up.
That's awesome. That's really cool. Yeah, I remember this was like early days, like 2016, 17. I took part in numerai competitions.
Dude, you are OG. That was predictive. Yeah. Wow.
And that was really fun. That was actually one of my first like crypto airdrops was NMR token. But yeah, I see this as like a really nice evolution of that. But I like the way it's split out to subnets because numerai was obviously very specific, right? It focused in on stock market data, and everyone was competing on the same data set. And then you would get a share of the rewards based on like your contribution to the meta model.
I've got a subnet for you, subnet 8.
Yeah,
literally. So I often say like every AI startup, almost any crypto startup, is a Bittensor subnet, and that's pretty much kind of what they do in subnet 8. So if you hit it big in numerai, then you might be top miner in subnet 8.
One of my friends, he's an advisor to Mode. He hit it very big on numerai. He's a bit of an ML Chad, so I'll definitely get him on subnet 8. That's for sure.
Oh, definitely, and I'm all like, anyone that's watching this, your friend, I am like a Bittensor. I'm about to get a Bittensor tattoo on my face. Like with that in, I will talk anyone through. I'll talk anyone like Bittensor. Because again, it's like it's an evolutionary organism, and the more people that interact with it, we get to like mold that energy and fix processes, and because the thesis is that the sum of the many is greater than the one. So it's like, how does this collective intelligence, how does it become this force that can stand to the Googles, the Meta? Because like, geez, I was like, you look, okay, we want to be able to train 500 billion models, but we cannot possibly do it the way Meta does it. It's impossible. Like we're not like I was reading the Llama 2 Llama 3 white papers, 16,000 H100s. That's crazy. But the truth of it is that on one of our subnets we have about 4,500, and we're not even getting started. Subnet 12 has 4,500 500 H100s. So it's about molding this organism to see, okay, how can we put this compute? Can we get like, and one of the things I'm pretty interested about is like, the promise of distributed training, because
Hmm.
it starts to make that a reality. Because, dude, like I was reading meta stuff, it can be very daunting because you look at how they do stuff, how big data behaves at like 450 billion parameters, what kind of storage they need to, and you think that, wow, as a company on our own, we cannot do it. But can we invoke this eternal decentralized AGI federation, who are like
Hmm.
people, hackers, whoever you are, that come together and combine resources to produce it? I think we can.
I
I
love
think we
that.
can. And there's some stuff we're working on right now that shows that, yep, it's not like it's not a dream, or it's not marketing.
No,
We don't do
it's
marketing.
it's amazing. I mean, like the thing that I really like about the positioning of BitTensor is like you go onto the website and the first thing you see is the philosophy right behind what what's being done and the bigger vision of like collective
Mhm.
intelligence. And I think that's awesome. And that's also like perfectly aligned with like why people should be in crypto, right? It's decentralizing money initially with Bitcoin. It's now you guys are decentralizing intelligence. And yeah, right now, like 2023, 2024 is the age of AI, where it's really started to grow like exponentially. So yeah, having a decentralized platform for this is really incredible. Um, I want to switch gears slightly and start to dig into how people are using BitTensor for financial use cases
Mhm.
and the benefits. I think that's something like we're super interested in. We spent a lot of time thinking about how AI is affecting DeFi. Um, Sturdy is a project they deployed on Mode, an awesome team we actually spoke with last week. They have a subnet. I think it's subnet 10. They're doing awesome stuff around yield optimization. So yeah, would love to dig into uh yeah, BitTensor and finance
That's
or
my
DeFi.
that's my whole speech gone, because all I had to talk about was no. That's it. No, so again, it's interesting because this is we call it human consensus. Throw human consensus into the wild. I want the people bring back. Yeah.
Mhm.
So there's also subnet 8, which is almost like Numerai plus plus. Yeah.
Okay.
And it's called the proprietary trading network. And it's people make predictions, and based on those predictions you can build second order products like copy trading.
Mhm.
There is I think originally subnet 2 was going to do kind of zkml inference, where machine learning models train people train machine learning models, and they don't have to share them because we can prove that inferences was right with
Mhm.
zkml. And yeah, so those are the major financial use cases we're seeing. I know there's another subnet that's going to launch soon that that I've been prepping to also look at trading. But that is those are the things we've seen so far, because we need to raise the bar for subnets. And initially maybe some of them weren't producing as well. So we're in the process of standing towards the system or the ecosystem, be like, look, our emissions are for you to produce, not the don't be the king of the village. Yeah, you're not to produce the best trading subnet in Bittensor. Our emissions are for you to produce the best trading subnet in the world. So we've had to, like yourself, because that's what it is, and our job is to give you the tools to do that, and we see that going. So I know there's two more launched in a couple of weeks, but the majority of our use cases are mainly training, because we're training the bottom, we're training the different AI primitives, and everyone is free to build on top of those.
Mhm. That's awesome. So if I'm building like a new copy trading app, right?
Mhm.
I can like how would I access the data from one of the subnets to like get this into my app.
This is very, very good. There's different ways to do this. In the way Bittensor is meant to work is that validators pay for bandwidth. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you pay for miners bandwidth. So according to how much stake you have, yeah, you pay for the miners will give you that product. So take for example, if you wanted to build a copy trading app, you would connect to you'd have to run a validator, then connect to subnet 8, or even if it's subnet 4, or a subnet that produces that digital good, then the miners will feed those APIs to your validator and you render it on top of that. Or it could be like, look, you want to build this app, you could take a bit from the trading subnet, then go to subnet 19 and be like, okay, can you provide subnet 19 or 4? They are inference subnets. Like, okay, I need you guys to provide inference. So you can do that mix and match of different services.
That's cool. That's very cool. Okay, awesome. So yeah, they're also kind of working with each other, right? So
yeah,
the data can come from one. It can be it can be like validated. It can be made private by another, and then pushed back. That's really cool. And that's all just done through APIs, right? So you just plug that API into your product, and then I assume like as a copy trading app, you know, this is interesting because then you have access to a fairly rare, let's call it like a rare model, right? Like it's not completely open for every single person. There's a cost to it to have that model. And so you have a unique model that you can plug into your copy trading application.
It depends. It just depends on what subnet you're getting it from. I haven't looked at Taoshi, which is subnet 8 that well, but what you're getting is more like wisdom of the crowd. You understand? It's kind of like you know, and so it's the miners that run those predictions, and they don't serve the model up directly. So that could be that. But again, you could have a customized model where it does just that. Like it just needs to be built, and if it's good, it will get weights and it will improve.
That's cool. That's really cool. So okay, just going back to like my conceptual copy trading app, right? So I set it up. I want to be a validator. Is it like super expensive for me to be a validator right now, or to like access stuff? It's not cheap, right? I see the Tau price going up like every day, and I'm like,
in fact, when the market nuked, I was happy. I was happy. That thing is too. It was like, you know, not every day number go up. Like, can number come down a bit so I can buy a bit more?
Okay, so I need to save up some more pennies for my to become a validator, I guess.
Yeah,
but no, is it like, is it crazy expensive, like to become a validator to access the models? Is it dependent on the subnet or?
It's not cheap. It's about at least 30,000 Tau, but we're changing this. So again, I'm
just doing the math in my head. Let's like,
dude. Like I've never
mil?
seen that many numbers. I've never seen that many numbers in my life. but one thing we do is we iterate a lot, and what I'm pretty excited about is detail, because there's a lot of like, again, we want 100, we want 1,000 subnets, because every subnet is an iteration of, you know, a group of hackers, a group of people trying to create something that will change the world. So we're trying to reduce those barriers to both validation, to both subnet creation, and make weight setting more transparent. So hopefully going forward, we have ways to, when detail launches, we have ways for people to be able to access the APIs without 30,000 Tau.
But I mean, I guess it works both ways, right? Because obviously, it's very expensive to become a validator. However, at the same time, the rewards are extremely high. So that's how the incentive mechanism works. That's how the model works, right? If the price goes up, the dynamic doesn't change, right? It just means that the amounts, you know, in Tau, everything is stable. Like the incentive mechanism works well. It's just that relative in dollar, it's going up like almost
Yeah,
exponentially.
but the dollar is the ultimate altcoin anyway.
True,
So we gonna
true.
buy tower dollar.
I mean, right now I'm definitely behind, definitely buying Tao. It's just
Cool,
yeah,
cool, cool.
yeah. It's obviously gone up a lot, so I guess yeah, that's kind of a barrier. But I guess that's exactly like you said. You're already working on figuring out how to lower the barrier to entry with these like different market dynamics with this detail. So can we dig into like what detail will be? That's gonna be
So
focused
so
on yeah, go for it.
so one of the issues we have right now is the root network. So we needed a mechanism to be able to divide, allocate emissions. So there's two types of things. There's allocation between subnets and there's allocation within subnets. So
Mhm,
and it's different mechanisms. So the root network currently handles allocations to subnets. And the problem with that is that, first of all, there's a high barrier to it, and people get risk free votes. You understand? So, take for example, I can just decide to give you some weights because I like you, which
mhm,
isn't, which is okay because most of our validators, they do a lot of research. They care about the system and they don't do that. But, we don't build based on benevolence. We always build thinking about what is the dominant strategy. What would an evil person do? What would a self-interested, self-optimizing person? No, not evil, not
yeah,
necessarily evil, but what would a person that is driven to
yeah.
optimize
A
his own profit?
mercenary.
Well, yeah. Like one of the things I like is like Adam Smith. It is not by the benevolence of the bread maker we eat bread. So people are innately self-maximizing. So we find that the root network falls short of that model. Well, because there's a
Mhm,
lot of things that I could say, hey James, give me some mode tokens and I'll give you weights. You know, no, and while I don't have evidence for it, it's not good enough. And also, there's a concept of like, if I give you weights, I want to be sure. If I give you a subnet weight, I should show conviction. So I should have some stake in it. If you don't do well, there should be some repercussion. So detail
mhm,
is that evolution and saying, okay, let us make your weights not votes from the root network, but let's make it market based. So so the way weights are allocated is that you stake into a subnet, and as you stake into
yeah,
a subnet, you're exposed to the market risk of that subnet. So if that subnet doesn't do well, your stake doesn't do well. So it's more like allowing markets to create what is the better subnet.
mhm.
That's what detail is. I think that's what detail is today. But I am very convinced Jake is writing detail V4 right now. Jake's a fun and is like the engine that powers a lot of the development there, and he writes too much code. Like,
Yeah.
he
Okay, so
writes. I can't keep up.
detail is essentially going to enable staking on subnets, and it's yeah bringing like a market
Exactly,
mechanism.
exactly. So you vote
Okay.
with your feet. You
Mhm,
vote with your feet. It's not like because yeah, you vote with your feet, and we'll make it more transparent. And it's also how Tau scales, because to be fair, as a validator, as a root network validator, how are 64 people going to each have an opinion of 1,000 subnets? It just isn't
mhm,
scalable. And
mhm.
and you kind of look at it like how the Nasdaq is. The Nasdaq is like different people creating different things. Different VCs, different funds taking a position in this, trying to, and so eventually, it kind of like reaches its equilibrium, or at least shows price discovery.
Yeah, that's cool. That's really cool. So yeah, you're again like using the crowd wisdom now to uh
Yeah.
to validate the sorry not to validate but to like yeah essentially use the market to decide on the performance of subnets. That's cool. I like that as well. I think like yeah in every system um you have to have like you have to punish bad actors or punish people that are not performing well. um when you have incentives you have to have disincentives. So yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
people
yeah.
when they need to bet with their feet, then they usually think about it a lot more than when it's just anything else.
Exactly. So again, like Bittensor is what it is because it's been 6 protocols in 2 years.
Hmm.
So as we build something, it's the best thing we have, but very quickly we find out something's not, something's not quite right. What can be improved? And immediately we start improving it because I can promise you the day detail launches, we're building the next thing because we have such a close and a tight feedback loop
Hmm.
that it just helps the whole development process and everything move and the ideation, the research. It helps everything move very along quite quickly.
That's awesome. I mean, I think that's something that a lot of crypto protocols struggle with, right? Because they, especially when you're building like in Solidity or something, the feedback loops are so long, right? Because you have to build something, audit it 2 or 3 times, deploy it, realize everyone hates it, rebuild it, redesign it. And that can be like, sometimes that feedback loop is like
Oh, so
six
so so so
months or a year.
so I started off with the EVM, and now I build on substrate, and
Yeah.
it's always going to be that immutability versus immutability or not.
Hmm.
And it's very hard because if you're building a product, immutability is not your friend. It's your. I don't think we could have built BitTensor on Ethereum. It would just like literally, and when the adversary is able to adapt, or when the not adversary, because okay, not all big tech is bad, but when they're able to iterate so quickly, immutability can sometimes be a crutch. But what we can do is to develop the kernel of the protocol so much, then make it immutable. So I think that's something I love about Substrate. Is like it gives you that architectural freedom. Like Solidity
Hmm.
is like, geez, you write contracts for 3 months, you do all that for 2 months, you spend another 4 months realizing your protocol is crap. Then it's just like, then it's up to your marketing department to keep you alive.
Yeah, for real. For real. Know that feeling.
Uh,
No, that's awesome. Super
then
cool.
after you deploy it, you belong to the Frog Nation. The Frog Nation is
Yeah, for real. No, that's awesome. Super cool. I mean, yeah, I don't have really any more questions. I feel like we've gone through like a lot. We've gone through like how subnets are come to be, what they can be used for, how they're incentivized, the different roles of miners and validators. We've gone into how like application builders, so like a builder on Mode or a builder on any chain can access this data. 30,000 tau, but that's changing. So 30,000 tau, yeah, $15 million right now, I think around. So is that right?
wait, are you telling me you don't have $50 million?
Not like right now, but like
Oh
give me
God,
give
no.
me
Well,
give
then,
me a little bit.
what are we doing here? What are we doing here? I thought, no. It's like you technically can be a validator with
Hmm.
1,000 tau, but
Okay.
there's a lot of things why it doesn't really work out that we're working on fixing. But you need at least and 30, yeah, you need at least 30,000 to be able to be a validator to be able to tap into the subnet's resources
Okay.
because
Cool.
there's also like some implicit scale on it in that we want, and it might not always be a bad thing because validators are the people that are going to build that epiphenomenal effect, which is the second order effect of that digital good. So they need to be able to have a lot of it, like quite a lot of it. So it doesn't make sense if I produce like 1,000 petaflops, 10 petaflops of storage, and we just divided by like 1,000 people. So you want like one person that has a lot of conviction to be able to take all that petaflops off you and build a product on it.
Okay. Makes sense. Makes sense. So that's a lot of conviction. But yeah, in the system it definitely makes sense. Okay, cool.
So when are we setting up your validator, James?
Just give me
Now
give
we can do
me
it on the
give me
call.
yeah, I mean, give me a few hours. We'll see what we can
Yeah.
do. No, that's awesome. That's really cool. And yeah, and I think like you mentioned that there are going to be a few more subnets being built around financial use cases. Are there any others? Like, what are like the craziest ideas that are going to come, if you're allowed to say, to
So
Bittensor?
I don't know. I don't know. But there's so we have liquid staking. TensorPlex is
Mhm.
actually doing a lot with getting Tau into other ecosystems. They've invested a lot in like liquid staking. They're on base. You know, you can even buy like Pendle tokens on that. So that, but that's not directly AI, but that's
Mhm.
using Tau. But when DTAU comes, it's going to maybe not as much as subnet, but I can't wait to see the financial applications that are built on DTAU on top of Tau as because we moved to a market based weight setting thing, because each subnet token, although it's not transferable, would have value. So we're going to
Mhm.
see, like, once DTAU is launched, we're going to see an explosion of derivative, as in the financial platform, but things that also derive their values off the activities or the expected activities of subnets. So I like literally, it's like it's like, and it could also be dangerous. It's like when Prometheus gave fire to man. It was neither good nor bad. It was like, what do you want to do with it? You want
Yeah,
to burn a house, or do you want to cook a steak? I really hope everyone's cooking steak.
that's cool. And what's the timeline on that? Is that coming soon, TM,
Uh,
or very soon, TM?
Somewhere in between soon and very soon, TM. We're looking at November, but
Cool.
we're not going to rush it because it's probably the biggest change to our protocol in a while. So we need to
Mhm.
test it. Anyone that's watching, we do because we've built protocols where we've written papers and built it, and there's a lot of things we don't catch. So we're doing detail the other way. We've written code. We have things called the RAL games. We've had 2 RAL games, and it's a place where we run a test net with detail
Mhm.
deployed and have people complete an objective so that we can flesh out bugs in the system, in addition to getting users to understand the system. So yeah, we've had 2 RAL games. I haven't done well in any of them, but I'm still optimistic. And yeah, I invite people to come and try. Visit this Bittensor Discord and hang around, join a RAL game. I think the last time we gave out a hundred Tau, and it was split among like the top 10 winners. And yeah, and there will definitely be more RAL games.
Amazing. Yeah, get in the Discord, people. That's 100 towers. Very valuable.
Yeah,
Awesome.
yeah. You only be 29,900 down for setting up your
It's
validation.
about it. Every little helps. Every little helps. Awesome. Thank you so much for coming on. That was yeah, that was awesome to chat. Um, and yeah, excited to keep learning more about the ecosystem, keep watching Tao's like immense growth. How can people that are interested in building, what's like the best place for them to go? People who are listening, what's the best place for them to like get into the community?
Just come on Discord or tag me on Twitter. But
Cool.
again, Twitter is not as good because there's a lot of bots now. Whenever number goes up, bots always tagging you. But come to
Mhm.
Discord, and we'll be more than happy to at least point you towards the right place to get involved as a miner, as a community member. And then it's just that we believe that, the more we collect, the more people and the more intelligent people, the more people that are truly passionate about the mission, the more, it just exponentially increases our chances of success.
Awesome. Love that. Love that. Awesome. Thank you so much for coming on. Really appreciate the
Thank you for
time.
having me.
Cheers.
Cool. Bye.